Seems like the popularity of plug-and-play systems is going pretty strong. You've got the NES Mini, which is pretty hard to come by in stores. People actually talking about the at-game Sega Genesis Classic console, even though it's the same thing, just they change the games on it every now and then. And at-game is also putting out an Atari Flashback portable version, which people are definitely talking about that as well. You'd think Retrobit was onto something, putting out a system which has 100 or so games from various third-party developers and spanning the third, fourth generations plus some arcade titles. You'd think they were really onto something and had a good idea going. The Retrobit Generations is an emulation-based console with over 100 games on it. Titles from Capcom, Data East, Jaleco, and IRM. The games range from Game Boy and NES or Famicom games to Genesis, Super Nintendo, and even arcade titles. Filling out the lineup are some recent homebrew type titles from Pico Interactive as well. It's apparent they're trying to target some more knowledgeable retro fans, including some games which never saw an official release here in the US, such as Ikari no Yosai 2 or Holy Diver. The size and variety of the library would lead you to believe that this would have a leg up on the NES Mini. The console itself looks pretty nice. It's small, it's lightweight, it's reasonably well constructed. It outputs both composite and HDMI video, which is a pretty nice touch. Usually these things just have one or the other. There's even an SD card slot for game save data. Retrobit was also nice enough to include not one but two USB controllers. As I've mentioned in my previous video, the controllers are surprisingly decent. When I think of Retrobit, I often associate them with the poorly constructed knockoff Genesis controllers they made a few years back, but apparently they've gotten a bit better at making these things. So here's the console, brimming with potential. It's got a number of great games on it, outputs video in HD, and as you can tell by the way I'm building it up, it's bound to fall short somewhere, and you'll discover that as soon as you start playing the games. Okay, maybe not at first, but the more you play them, the more off they seem. Not all of them, a few of them are actually passable, but in a lot of cases, there's something a bit off with the emulation. Starting fairly close at the top, when you play 1942, you'll notice that it plays really, really slow. Other games will play too fast. There's also some input lag, but that might be the fault of modern televisions, so you might want to try your TV's game mode if it has one. Some of the games I'm not so sure if the lag is just input lag or if it is the fault of poor emulation. Mercs is a great example. This game is also one that has noticeably bad frame rate as well. And as you play more and more of the games on this, it's largely par for the course with the system. It really makes me wonder how well they play tested it before shipping it out, especially with the amount of graphical and audio weirdness coming from the console. And speaking of weirdness with the visuals, I know you can't see this any in my captured video. It's probably something that I can change in the settings, but by default, a lot of the games cut off some of the screen at the top or the bottom. It could be something to do with aspect ratio, I'm not sure, but it's just one of those weird things about the console. I still haven't played every game on the console, but I will say that there was a very strong attempt to put a little something for everyone on this console. For me, there's quite a few things that I have little or no interest playing. In fact, some of the homebrew or repro type games on here just seem like really odd choices. Very similar to the things you'd find on one of those at-games Genesis consoles. There's a Flappy Bird clone, there's some random puzzle games and shoot-em-ups, and what's worse is the manual for the console doesn't tell you anything about any of these games, so you have no idea how to play them if you wanted to. In some of these games, it seems like they've picked the least intuitive button mapping by default. Not all of them, and I know this is something that you can change in the menus. However, if you do not know that going in, you'll be in for a bit of a surprise. Despite some of the weirdness with the emulation, even some of the games that are a bit off are still somewhat playable. Knights of the Round wasn't absolutely terrible, neither was Gunsmoke. I really intended to talk more about the variety of titles on the console, but making my way through the different games to try things out, it kind of got to a point where I was asking myself, how are they going to screw this one up next? And it got to the point where I really just didn't want to play any more of them. Truthfully, now that I've spent more time with the console and its different games, many of which I have access to by other means, be it having physical copies of some of the cartridges or access to ROMs, it's highly unlikely that I'll ever be setting this up again. It's probably just going to stay in my collection as a curiosity. And if you've been on the fence about getting one of these for yourself, all I've got to say is that I think you should pass. Hope you've enjoyed the review. Thank you for watching. Please like or subscribe if you so desire. Take care.